All right, so TCU Baylor. What in the world? Chandler Morris. I'm not so sure Gary Patterson should have been fired for not playing him. I know Max Duggan was a returner, but what was that a one-time hit thing, or was that who he is? Because he embarrassed the Baylor defense.
He's not doing that every week. He's absolutely not going to do that every week.
Some yards, no, but wow. I mean, he tore them up, and his ability to get away, eventually you lose some of that. He was just magical in that game Saturday, just bottom line.
Yeah, he was. He was fantastic. And, I should have probably had him on my players to watch, but, I still maintain that no matter what TCU did, Baylor should have won that game. And, TCU came out, popped him in the mouth, out-physicaled him in many ways, made bigger plays, out-coached them, absolutely. The only thing that was really even, quite frankly, was the penalties, because that was a total flag show. Whether they were legitimate or not, a lot of them actually were. And that was the frustrating part, was it was just penalty throughout that game. But that was on both sides. So, no, they out-coached, out-played, out-fought, out-executed, everything, Baylor, in my opinion, on Saturday. And yet there was Baylor at the very end of the game with a chance to go down and win it, despite all of that. And they throw one of the worst interceptions you'll ever see. Problem for Baylor fans, you saw Charlie Brewer do that twice against Oklahoma in massive losses at the end of games. And there was Gary Bohannon basically doing the exact same thing that you saw Charlie Brewer do against Oklahoma, just staring down a guy and throwing it right to him on the sideline. I just couldn't believe it when he made that throw. But yeah, there was something off, and a lot of that had to do with what TCU threw out there. I know that
they just took their hats off and let's just go play fearless.
Yeah, they
right?
played like they had no restrictions, and that was hard to prepare for if you're Baylor. But at the same time, all credit in the world to Chandler Morris. All credit in the world to Chandler Morris. They just did not have an answer for him. But they need to figure out what they're going to look like moving forward, because to me, as much as that was a Chandler Morris hero-type game and great performance from Quentin Johnston, the TCU defense played the best it has all year. Their offensive line played relatively well. I mean, other than just not having a running game with your actual running backs, and Zach Evans wasn't even playing, but the two backs, they didn't do much of anything. But outside of them, TCU did a whole lot of everything, and that was an embarrassing loss. I mean, that was an embarrassing loss, no matter what Chandler Morris did. And to me, I don't want to sound like it's the end of the world or anything like that, but I got to get off my chest. That was almost inexcusable to go up to Fort Worth and lose that football game. I understand that upsets happen. TCU owns this series. That's very clear. I don't want to hear about 61-58 ever again, because it's meaningless at this point when your rival's gone 6-1 against you and kicked your ass multiple times in doing so, and you can't beat them ever. And when you do, it's like by the skin of your teeth every single time. And that's what their last two wins have been, skin of their teeth type wins. It was 61-58 and a triple overtime victory. That's Baylor's two most recent wins in the last 7 years. Meanwhile, you got 20, 30, 40-point blowout, and then still winning the close games like on Saturday. So TCU's absolutely owned this series, and this was the one time that you got set up to where you were the big favorite. You were the team that was coming in playing confident. You weren't the one that had switched your head coach like you have a couple of times in this series here lately, of which TCU subsequently went out and kicked Jim Grove's ass and kicked Matt Rule's ass, and here you are, and there's Jerry Kill on the opposing sideline, starting quarterbacks out, starting running backs out. Defense hasn't looked worth the salt. Offensive line hasn't been great, and they look like the better team all throughout the day, dude.
The top two running backs.
Top two running backs. Well,
no,
it's the second time, 2018 and Saturday, were two times when TCU was wounded and not very good, and they beat Baylor in Waco in 18, remember, on a couple of plays by Rager. And then they beat them up offensively and made enough plays on defense as well. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, and then they just took it to them, and I just felt like Baylor came out. That first drive was great. They got the 3-and-out. They go down and score in like 2 plays. They get a fumble, and there they are. It's 7-0. They've got the ball. They've already stopped TCU twice, and that's when everything fell apart, because they went 3-and-out on this awful-looking drive. TCU scores, and then after that, it was kind of they were punching, trying to save themselves and keep their heads above water the rest of the game. And fortunately for them, they were able to always get a breath when they needed one. But the problem was they were always trying to get a breath, and they were never actually swimming at all. And so I just think that was a team that was ill-prepared. Some of that's understandable because of the wild card that you did have with Chandler Morris, but even still, the things that he did, the throws, you can't help some of those. But the getting away from the pocket, we saw that against Texas State. We saw that in various other games this year, and it's killed them, and it really hurt them on Saturday. So hats off to him, but that was a really disappointing performance all the way around, in my opinion, from Bohannon to the defense, everything in between.
The defense was humiliated by Chandler Morris, and you could say a lot. Here's the bottom line. They got to him a few times, but they never wrapped him up. He got loose. Petrie let him go. Bernard let him go. Sometimes diving into his seat. He played an incredible game.
He did.
But the Baylor defense absolutely was just caught off guard with what he did on offense.
Yeah, I thought, like I mentioned, 2 running backs out. Kendry Miller started the game, and then his second carry gets hurt and leaves the game. So now you're down to your third running back. It's already 7-0. Abrams has this big run. You have this wide, Tyquan Thornton is wide open, and it looks like more of the same. And then all of a sudden, it just flipped the script where the plays start going their way. Tyquan Thornton should have caught a touchdown in the end zone. Travius Hodges makes a fantastic play. That interception was more of kind of a, I don't really put that on Gary too much, although the throw could have been a little bit better. Travius Hodges makes a great play, but then they were just with their mouth above the water every time, getting a breath, like you said, Craig, and not ever just. I thought there was going to be a point. Armstrong and I watched the game here the other day. There just felt like there was going to be a point where Baylor said, okay, that was good. You guys played with all your emotion and you're fired up and, you're long live Gary Patterson and all that stuff that you're feeling right now. But now let's be who we both are. Never happened.
Never could make the big pick. There was a couple of times. I thought the play in the end zone, and I forgot the safety's name that came over on the throw when they had a pick. Come up, go high point, pick it off. You could be running down the sidelines. That was an opportunity. But here's the bottom line. They didn't play. They didn't win the game. TCU was the better team on Saturday, and that's why they won the football game. And emotionally, I think Baylor started to play uptight.
And for some reason, TCU knows how to get up for this game, and Baylor has no idea. In my opinion, if you look at the last 8 years, who's the team that comes in and you have the most confidence in every single time? Who do you know is going to play a good game?
Against Baylor?
In this series.
Oh, no, it's going to be TCU. Most every single time.
Every single time. And so.
And it wasn't a miraculous comeback. No. If it wasn't for a miraculous comeback in 2014, they would have done it again then. I mean, in the game that would have put TCU in the national championship picture.
Yeah, right? I mean, 61-58 just sounds super silly now. It does. TCU's got multiple victories to be able to brag over at this point. They've owned this series. It wasn't but a few years ago. The series was 500, and now I think they have like a 4 or 5 game lead in it. And I know that Baylor's had a roller coaster to deal with. But here's TCU, fresh roller coaster being constructed with their longtime head coach gone. And what do? They come out and they still beat you down. Like, that to me is where I just go, this is inexcusable, as much as Chandler Morris could not be prepared for, even if Saban was prepared for him. You know what I mean?
I agree. It was a disappointing. And really, quite frankly, and there's a couple people that disagree. Let me read this one comment from. I
was going to say, I don't think Gary Bohannon had a very sharp game on Saturday. It just felt a little like Charlie Brewer at times, where there were certain games that Charlie just came out and he was just. It just felt like something was. It wasn't all there. It was just like the energy was maybe a little bit off.
Well, why did they? But they were at least throwing the ball deep and having success. It's like I would have just done that on every play. I would have been Chandler Morris on the other side to just wing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I don't know. There's just something that was a little bit of a disconnect, I thought, with Gary on Saturday.
No, I agree. And if 7-0, you recover a fumble, do nothing with it. It almost seems like the steam. If you scored, you hear about this. You're supposed to win, then you score early, get a break, and you don't take advantage of it. From Mark, completely disagree. Not embarrassing and not inexcusable. That's a sky is falling mentality. TCU fired up. Quarterback played out of his mind. Baylor 7-2. And then said take a Valium. No, it was inexcusable. It's an inexcusable loss. I disagree.
I don't think the sky's falling by any means. That was a bad loss, and I don't need to take a Valium, brother, but take your own advice on
Mike
that.
Terry, sorry I missed y'all last week. Keep up the great work. A $20 super chat. Thank you very much. And we appreciate the feedback from a lot of you from different angles. We're not done. We'll get into Florida with Dan Mullen and all what's going on with that, and SMU fading. UT San Antonio and Houston popping up. How long? High. How high will they get in the college football standings? And can it, in any way, Houston help Cincinnati? Next, Carlos Silva with the Lubbock Avalanche Journal on Joey McGuire, the new head coach at Texas Tech. The reaction from Lubbock next on Sikkim 365 Radio.
All right, sports bettors,